Okay, here we're going to take a look at a couple Sheridan Super Grades. One is an early one, that one's serial number 45, and then there's a later gun below it. And first of all, the butt plates, they're the same butt plates were used on them. Stock contours are similar, but they are slightly different. You'll notice on the bottom gun, which is the later gun, it's fatter. You know, it's a little thinner in the wrist area of the early gun. One of the big differences you're going to see right away with this particular one, the word Sheridan is actually hand engraved. This particular one is missing the dashes before and after the word Sheridan. Last I knew, this was the only one that had been located like that. There might be more out there. I'm not aware of them. But yeah, usually you would run across having dashes before and after the word Sheridan. This one's pressed in, and there's your dashes. That's typical of the guns, both on early and late. This early gun has a original handguard on it. It would have been sold without a handguard. The handguard was placed on at a later date, whether it was shipped back to the factory or somebody ordered one or however, but it does have a original handguard on it. Later gun, also original handguard. That would have been on there when that was ordered. Pins are in slightly different spots on the pump handles. Now this early gun has a fatter front sight that you don't come across very often. Even on the early guns, you don't see it too much. Later gun is more narrow. And then we will go ahead and flip these over so we can see the other side and a couple other differences. Okay, here's the other side of the Super Grades. We'll go back to the stocks. The early one has a flute in it. Later one, that is no longer on the guns. The other big thing that is noticeable are the bolt handles. The early gun has a long, unplated bolt, and this particular one actually has the black tang, which is unusual. That is very seldom seen as well. And there's your typical aluminum colored tang. That's fairly common. And on the early one, all you have is the patent applied for stamped in the side. Your later one, there's the name, serial numbers on the side of the gun. The other thing that's slightly different, triggers are a little bit different on them. The one other thing that would have been hard to see but is there is the sights are slightly different. Nothing too major there. Well, let's go ahead and open up the pump handles and we'll see a difference in that area too. Okay, now the big thing between these pump handles, the early ones are all felt lined. Later ones, no felt lining, just the rubber bumper. There's some other internal differences. They're kind of hard to see, but they are there. Early gun, you got a brass ferrule. Later gun, none. All the Super Grades also have stamps in the stock, and that stamp repeats itself on the pump handle. That's so they would keep the wood at the same because it's used the same blank. The early gun, your serial number is right there on the lower part of the receiver, whereas we've seen earlier serial numbers on the side of the receiver on the later guns. Also, the serial number is stamped on the bottom of the receiver if you remove the stock, which we're not going to do here, but that is underneath there. And they usually start out with a bunch of zeros and a 1. But that is some of the differences between an early and a late model Super Grade. If you ever get a chance to own one or even just shoot one, I would highly recommend it. These were produced with no regard to cost when they were originally made, and it shows when you actually handle one of these air rifles. So anyway, that is some of the differences between an early and a late model Sheridan Super Grade.